Okay, let's talk about economics. I know, for a lot of people, the word itself just sounds complicated, right? But what if I told you that in just the next few minutes, we're going to go from zero to hero? We're going to make it all make sense, and I promise, no crazy math or boring jargon. So, let's do this. You hear words like GDP, inflation, interest rates. They're all over the news, but let's be honest, it can feel like you're trying to learn a whole new language. And if you find them confusing, you're not alone. But here's the secret. The big idea behind all of it is actually way simpler than you think. And that's the secret. Economics, it's not really about money. When you strip it all down, it's about one thing: choice. It's about the thousands of little decisions that you, me, and everyone else makes every single day. So let's start right there, with that foundation. It's all about choice. Seriously, if you get this one concept, everything else we're about to cover is going to click into place. You see, the entire field of economics only exists because of one single fundamental problem. We call it scarcity. Think about it. Human wants are pretty much unlimited, right? But our resources, our time, our money, our energy are all limited. We just can't have everything we want. And that simple fact, that reality of scarcity, forces us to make decisions constantly. That's the trade-off. Anytime you choose one thing, you are, by definition, giving up something else. This isn't just something that happens once in a while. It is the engine behind every single economic action. Economists have a really cool name for this. They call it opportunity cost, and it's the real cost of any choice you make. So let's say you spend 2 hours binging a show on Netflix. The cost isn't zero, it's the 2 hours you didn't spend studying or working or sleeping. That thing you gave up, that is the true price you paid. Okay, so we're all out here making choices and trade-offs. But what happens when you get millions, even billions of people all making these choices at the same time? Well, that's where you get the engine of the economy, the market. Now, if you only remember one single idea from all of this, please make it this one: supply and demand. It is incredibly powerful. And it's just what it sounds like. It's the relationship between how much of something is out there, that's the supply, and how much people actually want it, that's the demand. And the logic here is super intuitive. When a lot of people want something, but there isn't much of it to go around, the price goes up. I mean, think about tickets for a massive concert. Everybody wants to go, but there are only so many seats, right? So the price just skyrockets. That's high demand. And of course, the opposite is true too. When there's a ton of something available all of a sudden, but the number of people who want it stays the same, the price has to come down. This is exactly why you see strawberries on a huge sale in the middle of summer. Suddenly, the farms have tons of them, and they need to lower the price to sell them all before they go bad. That's high supply. And this leads us to a really big idea. Prices are not random numbers. They're signals. A high price is a signal to businesses saying, hey, make more of this, while telling us, the customers, maybe buy a little less. These price signals coordinate the actions of millions of people without anyone being in charge. It's like a giant invisible conductor for the whole economy. So now that we have those basic mechanics down, let's zoom out a bit. Economists basically have two different ways of looking at all this activity. You can think of it like looking at individual trees versus looking at the entire forest. And these two lenses have names: microeconomics and macroeconomics. Microeconomics looks at the trees. It focuses on the choices made by individuals or by single companies. Macroeconomics, on the other hand, looks at the whole forest. It's the big picture stuff, like inflation, unemployment, and the growth of an entire nation. So for the next little bit, let's take that macro view. Let's get in the helicopter and look at the forest from above and check out some of the key dials and gauges we use to see how the whole system is doing. Okay, the most famous gauge is GDP, which stands for Gross Domestic Product. The easiest way to think about it is like a country's economic report card. It's the total dollar value of everything, every car, every coffee, every haircut, produced in a country in a year. Now, it's not a perfect measurement, for sure. It doesn't measure our well-being or the environment, but it's still the main way we track if an economy is growing or shrinking. All right, next up is a word we have all been hearing a lot about: inflation. All this really means is a general rise in prices across the board. And what that means for you is very, very simple. Your money buys less than it used to. It's a slow, quiet erosion of your purchasing power. And to make that real, think about this. $100 just a few years ago might only buy you what $85 buys you today. That's inflation in action. It's quietly eating away at the value of your savings, unless they're growing even faster. So who's trying to manage these huge forces? Well, there are two main players. You have governments, and their main tool is fiscal policy. That's their power to tax people and spend money to speed up or slow down the economy. And then you have central banks, who use monetary policy. Their big tool is controlling interest rates to make borrowing money cheaper or more expensive. It's a constant balancing act between the two. Phew. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, right? We've gone from a single choice about Netflix all the way up to the entire global economy. So now, let's pull all these ideas together into a powerful mental toolkit that you can start using today. Here's how it all connects, step by step. 1. It all starts with scarcity, the fact that our resources are limited. 2. Scarcity forces us to make trade-offs, and every single choice has an opportunity cost. 3. The choices we make in those trade-offs are driven by incentives, like prices. And 4. All of those millions of individual interactions create the big systems we see around us. The micro choices build the macro picture. And honestly, just by understanding that simple, logical flow, you've done it. You're not a beginner anymore. You now have the actual framework to understand what's going on in the news, to see why governments are making certain decisions, and most importantly, to connect it all back to your own life and your own finances. Which brings us to one last thought. You see, economics isn't a spectator sport. It's a game that every single one of us is playing every day. So now that you can see the system, now that you understand the forces shaping your world, how are you going to navigate it? What's your next move?